Okay, so hopefully I'm right. I want to talk today about the Cuban Missile Crisis. Because you may not know, it was 50 years ago in October of 2012. So I guess it's sort of passed unmarked for most people. But I just did a little bit of research on it around that time. I thought it was really interesting, and it's a sort of important topic today in the world where we have lots of nuclear weapons. And this is like the instance where the world came closest to nuclear war than it ever has before or since. So it's kind of worth talking about it. So there is a poll everywhere, which I somehow managed to pull up.com, and I'll tell you the code. The code is okay. 22333.
That's the text 2 number.
Oh, yeah. Okay, if it's yes, then 8700. If no, 8755. The question is, should we care about the Cuban Missile Crisis? Okay, so it's like 100% said yes. So, I guess.
I said no.
Hey, well, that's a good idea. Okay, why do you think we should not care about the Missile Crisis?
I just wanted to cause trouble. I think it's important. I said yes.
Okay. Alright, so just in the corner of the table, why should we care with travel maps? Or based on something you have right now this video.
Well, could have had a really good impact.
Yeah,
Potential to really do some damage.
Could have lost half the United States.
I slept through that history lesson, but what I do remember, it was important because the Soviets were using it as kind of a football to project their power in the Western Hemisphere. So.
And that's just because it's country, so we should know about it.
We should just know our past and about what you think.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking just like it's better to understand history because we don't want to repeat itself. I'm kind of continuing saying, but like if you don't know what's happened, how can you make proper decisions about what will happen?
First Science History next section, what happened? So let's start there. So in October 14th, 1962, a U.S. spy plane, U-2 spy plane, was doing routine flyover over Cuba, and they spotted what looked kind of strange in the countryside. What they said were construction sites for Soviet nuclear missiles that, if they related their research, looked at different missiles, compared them to pictures they already had, they said, okay, these, Mr. President, they were Kennedy said these missiles could potentially threaten the entire eastern seaboard of the United States. We're talking Washington, D.C., New York, McDill. So there's all the many important populations in the United States are now threatened by these missiles. So this led to a whole 13-day crisis between Kennedy and Khrushchev, where they went back and forth negotiating. It culminated with a naval quarantine, because technically a blockade is an act of war. So a quarantine established around Cuba to prevent Soviet ships from bringing in more supplies to continue building nuclear sites. And it also got to the point where there was warning shots fired at Soviet ships. There was an American spy plane that was shot down over Cuba, killing the pilot, which should have led to a lot of retaliation. So things got pretty close to coming to nuclear war. And next slide, please. So if you look, this is the picture that came back. They said these are the nuclear sites. So picture yourself as Kennedy. I mean, most likely Kennedy does not have much experience with nuclear weapons or their schematics. If you imagine having to make an executive decision based just on this information, what do you think you could have done in his position?
I'm sorry, what are these little things pointing out? Like the little... what is this?
Those are arrows pointing out, one says tents, one says construction sites. This is pointing at different things. According to the military, this is the stuff they're using to build launchers for their weapons. Yeah. You might be given to panic, like, oh my God, we're on in World War III.
But he didn't question them, like, pretty sure.
Yeah. Well, think about it. If you're Kennedy, you have to work on the word of your experts, of your military men, say, Mr. President, they have weapons, they're building weapons that they can potentially shoot at us. It's logic behind it.
If I was Kennedy, I would probably ask for more accurate information because, I mean, the military's been wrong about things before.
Exactly.
That's not exactly the best photograph of that kind of decision.
Right, so or even better intel is different. You think you would do?
No, I guess so. I mean, if this is all he had and they weren't experts and whatnot, I mean, he wouldn't want to not be, like, not act. And then if something did happen, it would be
Exactly.
on him. So I guess I understand the pressure that he would be feeling.
Right. So what happened? This news continued. There was the Soviet ships trying to run the blockade. There were shots fired at them until one was turned back. There was an American plane shot down, which Kennedy could have used as a reason to start a war to invade Cuba, but he didn't. And then finally, they came to an agreement. There was public negotiations, a backdoor negotiation. Publicly, Khrushchev agreed that they would dismantle the nuclear sites and send all this stuff back to the Soviet Union under supervision of the United Nations. But under the table agreements, they said, "Look, Kennedy, you're not going to get this for free. We want you to do something for us." So, as a sort of face-saving move, they did this public agreement. But the private agreement was that in exchange for the removal of rockets from Cuba, the United States would remove their old Jupiter missiles from Italy and Turkey that had long threatened the Soviet Union. So it was comparable to them putting missiles in Cuba. And interestingly, Khrushchev, when he put the middle weapons in Cuba, didn't do it with an event of, "I want to start a war escalation." He thought, okay, the United States has had these weapons in Turkey for a long time. We're just balancing out the balance of power, and now that we have even footing, we can negotiate as equals, but it sort of backfired on him. Next slide. So yeah, this shows the deal. Yeah, next slide. All right, so JFK. So what do we know about JFK as a person?
He was assassinated on a demonstration.
All right, assassinated. Do you know anything about him that could have influenced the way he thought about the situation going into? He was Catholic. I will just go on the next slide. So, who was in charge? Kennedy was in charge of the United States at this time. The one thing you know about Kennedy is during World War II, he was on a patrol boat in the Pacific. So he was there in 1943, going through the Pacific Islands. And one thing that happened a lot, or several times, enough to make an impression on him as an individual, was sometimes they would arrive at islands and there would be bodies there that they and the Marines did not kill. These were Japanese soldiers and civilians who, rather than surrendering, killed themselves. There were soldiers falling on grenades, shooting themselves. And he learned, what he took from the experience was, in the face of overwhelming opposition, you cannot count your enemy to surrender. I mean, most people will. I mean, one thing is they'll surrender, they'll run away, or they'll fight to the end and have an ally. The Japanese didn't do any of those things. They would rather die or go to their deaths fighting instead of surrendering, even in the face of overwhelming superiority, in this case, the United States. So this is the view Kennedy's bringing with him to the Cuban Missile Crisis, where his general was telling him, Mr. President, bomb these sites. It's, well, what do you think the Russians will do if we kill Russian personnel when we bomb these sites? And his Air Force Staff General May saying, Mr. President, they'll do nothing. Because they know we have superiority in the region. They know we can hit them harder, we have more nuclear weapons, they'll just do nothing. And Kennedy's saying, I don't believe you. You say, well, if it was us, I know we would attack the Soviet Union too. So he's thinking, and the Cuban people themselves, led by Castro, they're not going to take the invasion thing down. Just going to make the next point. This is Khrushchev. So does anybody know anything here about Khrushchev? Okay, I guess not. So Khrushchev was not a very well-educated man. He was the son of a coal miner. He himself worked in coal mines. But what he did also, like Kennedy, he had his own World War II experiences. Khrushchev was a middle-ranking Russian soldier, so he fought in the war as well. And his experience in the war was that of seeing 27 million Russians, civilians and soldiers, dying in the worst war they've ever had. Some were killed, some were died in prisoner of war camps, some froze to death, some starved to death. And he has this very good image of what war does to people. This is the image he's bringing. He did not want the war when he put the weapons there, rather than trying to negotiate footing. And so he doesn't want this war. He wants to finally have a good peaceful solution. And then finally, Castro. What do we know about Castro?
He's terrible.
Americans don't have very much affection for Castro. All right, what do you know about Castro personally? Back when he was a teenager, he used to play this suicide bicycle game with his friends, whereas they would find a bicycle and they would establish some sort of arbitrary point about a quarter mile away from a brick wall. No padding, nothing to stop, nothing to slow you down, just solid brick. The object of the game is to take the bike and ride full speed at the wall and hit it. To win this game, you have to be bloody. Don't believe you can. Castro never, ever lost this game. If somebody else hit it, yeah, he had to go to round 2, round 3. Castro's undefeated suicide bike rider in Cuba this time. So this is the mentality he has, this person that you cannot give up. That he's willing to hit that brick wall, and he is the Cuban people are willing to hit that brick wall. In fact, he tells Khrushchev this in a letter after the ships turn back to Khrushchev, it's okay. If Cuba is wiped out, and that's what it takes to beat the Yankees, to beat the United States, that's fine. We're willing to accept that. And Khrushchev, my God, those guys off his rocker. So that's the idea Castro has. So here we have two people who don't want this war, and then we have a third person who wants this fight to happen. He's telling Cuban people, shoot down any planes you see, get ready for the Yankees. The next level. So this brings us to what didn't happen. This is all what happened during the crisis. This is what didn't happen. Well, first of all, the world did not end. We're still here. Most of the United States is still here. Cuba's still here. Russia's still here. The important thing is, this was a situation where, do you think any three of these people wanted a nuclear war, really, really wanted a nuclear war to happen?
No, Castro is
Castro's also, yes, Castro was the sort of loose cannon instance. But think about it. This is an instance where none of the two people who had the power to push the button, those which to make the war, they did not want a nuclear war. Khrushchev didn't want the war, and Kennedy didn't want the war. And neither one of them knew that about the other one. So here's an instance where, do you think nuclear war can happen if nobody wants it to happen?
Yeah. I mean, if Kennedy thought Khrushchev wanted a war, and he was determined, to win it, looked like they did it over with, he could just bomb them. He thought they were going to do it first.
Exactly.
They didn't do anything.
I was just gonna say, I feel like normally people probably don't want a nuclear war, but it's something that just happens out of drastic measures.
Almost out of fear.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what do you think is stopping them from saying, "Oh, they got weapons. Let's drop the bombs now"? What was leading to stopping Kennedy besides just the whole his gut wounded and didn't like it? Retaliation, mutually assured destruction. Right? If you send the bombs, they'll send bombs back.
Want to be known as the country that keeps dropping nuclear bombs and everybody makes us mad.
Exactly. Do we want this reputation of where the trigger happy, it was Canada Americans who was bombing everybody willy-nilly? So, last slide. So, why should we care about the Cubans in prison? What can we take away from this experience with the world almost ending?
I think communication is really important, especially because what really caused was Khrushchev wanting to negotiate. He wanted a clear channel of communication and wanted a fair balance. But they didn't really communicate, which is what caused all the decision and confusion.
Now, a lot of people nowadays think nuclear weapons are a good deterrent to conflict. Do you think, would you cite this, if you had to cite this case, would you take this as evidence for nuclear weapons as a deterrent or nuclear weapons as sort of cause of problems?
So two-sided though, because it can't be a deterrent if it hasn't happened.
Exactly. Well, then again, there's the threat of if they attack us, we'll bomb them. Right. That's the argument for deterrence, that they know we have these weapons, so they won't use their weapons. Whereas the other argument would be just having these weapons is a huge problem. So,
I would say between two sovereign nations who want ultimately to preserve their own existence, it makes a lot of sense. But if you have a rogue state or a rogue individual, like a terrorist, then nuclear weapons are a source of conflict because that person doesn't care if they use them or not.
right, so you're saying, well, think about it. The terrorist organizations nowadays have nuclear weapons.
They might.
And yet, does that mean they're not effective?
No, they're definitely not.
Right, so you think about the term weapons of mass destruction, which is the term used for nuclear weapons. How many people have nuclear weapons killed in all their history?
Always Japanese.
So that was just one instance nuclear weapons have been used. How many people have regular weapons killed? So, exactly. Nuclear weapons have been used twice, they kill a few 100,000, but regular weapons are used every day and they're killing millions a year. So like the imbalance, what's the true of mass destruction here? All right, I think I'm playing it.
My mind is blown.
Yeah, it would have been. Like if we had had an hour to talk about that. We could have